Our next speaker is lecturer and entrepreneur with experience in supply chain management and sustainability in the blockchain industry. He has a passion at the intersection of culture, history, and technology. And with that, I'd like to welcome on stage Yannick Dolz, ready to time travel. Take it away, man.
Thank you, Alexei. Thank you, everybody. My name is Yannick Dolz, and I love the intersection of society and technology. As you can see here, I'm flying on the first Dutch blockchain incubator that we organized a while ago. And in the meantime, lots of developments have played in this field. Besides that, I have an engineering background, and I give lectures on the blockchain topic. I've worked on projects in supply chain management and sustainability in the blockchain world. Today, I want to talk to you about the human evolution of technology. Because when we look way back in the history of humankind, technology has something that empowered people around the world and made sure that we were thriving in an ever-changing world. Because when we way go back, we can see that there were human tribes all around the world, and these tribes were only 70 people big. So what it made is that these tribes were organized in a decentralized way, because everybody knew each other. Everybody knew each other's face. So there was a trustless system that was society built on. But then there was the time that agriculture came along. So when agriculture was there, we were settling down and creating the new food with the new technology that agriculture provided for us. In the meantime, also our tribes were growing and becoming bigger and bigger. And this led also to a challenge, because we needed to organize our society in a different way. And that's why, at that moment, we had to centralize. We had to create structures to make sure that everything was organized in a good way. And because of that, we have now very complex centralized systems around the world. Look to current supply chains. They are very complex. Humankind did a very good job. But there was also a downside, because when you look to how these organizations were organized, we also know they were not as efficient as their decentralized counterparts. But at that moment, we had no other solution to provide this gain for society. And now we have the luck with blockchain that we can have a trustless system all around the world created by technology for society. And look some years back. If we look there, then we saw in the early 2000s, and maybe a little bit before, that the internet was coming along. It was a technology that some would say was going to change the world, while others were still thinking that this was something that will go away. And if we look now about how internet is wired into our society, it's something that cannot go away anymore. Our businesses, how we communicate with others, everything is built on top of this technology. So as we can also see in this video that I want to show, is that the internet in 1995 was completely different perceived by most. And this is the same where blockchain is currently in.
But you know, I think about this, and what about this internet thing? Do you know anything about that?
Sure.
What the hell is that exactly?
Well, it's become a place where people are publishing information.
Right.
So everybody can have their own homepage, companies are there, the latest information. It's wild what's going on. You can send electronic mail to people. It is the big new thing.
Yeah, but you know, it's easy to criticize something you don't fully understand, which is my position here.
Go ahead.
But I can remember a couple of months ago, there was like a big breakthrough announcement that on the internet or on some computer deal, they were going to broadcast a baseball game. You could listen to a baseball game on your computer. And I just thought to myself, does radio ring a bell? You know what I mean?
There's a difference.
There is a difference.
It's not a huge difference.
What is the difference?
But you can listen to the baseball game whenever you want.
All right.
Too.
Oh, I see. So it's stored in one of your memory deals,
Exactly.
and then you can come
That's
back
the
a year
RAM
later.
thing you talked about earlier.
Yeah. Do tape recorders ring a bell? Yeah, I just don't know. What can you, just knowing me, the little you know me now, what am I missing here? What do I need?
Well, if you want to learn about the latest cigars or auto racing statistics.
Well, you know, I've got that covered. I subscribe to 2 British magazines devoted entirely to motorsports, and I call the Quaker State Speed Line about 2 times a half hour. So now, would the computer give me more than I'm getting that way?
Oh, you can find other people who have the same unusual interests you do, and
So as we can see, is in the early stage of the internet, a lot of criticism was there. And people thought that it was maybe a technology that would go away. But if we look back to how internet impacted our lives, our businesses, and how the way we communicate with people all around the world, we know it is here to stay. And if you compare also the internet to the human body, it's like the blood vessels and the nerve system that completely connects our whole body. And now, on top of that current infrastructure, we get an extension, a collective brain, a collective logic that can create trust all around the world. Because if you look to the technologies through humankind about how we exchanged information with one another, then it was basically that every time there was an innovation, even it was the printing press, the radio, the TV, the internet, every time the complete infrastructure was replaced. But now we get an extension, a collective brain, a collective logic, which can bring trust all around the world. So basically, we're stepping into a new era, and that's Web3. So not only we are connected all around the world, we can connect organizations, we can create the infrastructure where we exchange information in a secure and immutable way, where we can have transparency and trust for everybody, for organizations and people around the world. Because if we're then going to look to the building blocks of society to create a new fabric with basically these new parts that are provided to us, a digital identity is very important. Currently, we have much of our identity is created by a passport that is given to a nation state. But with blockchain, we can look to self-sovereign identity solutions in which people are enabled, where people get the power back, that they have control, the data sovereignty, the control over their own data, in which they can choose with who they share their data, with who they want to interact, and with who they trust. And basically, on top of that, if we have then that identity, we can look to the ownership of assets. We can look to the ownership of assets like fungible assets, that can be gold, that can be Bitcoin, but also commodities that are tokenized of national resources all around the world. And on the other hand, we have NFTs, non-fungible assets. And these are also very interesting. Because when we look, for instance, for the property of a house, we don't have to go to a notary anymore, because basically a smart contract and an NFT can be used to exchange the ownership from one person to the other. But there are much more other functions that NFTs can provide to humanity. Look now, for instance, how an artist can interact with his fans. Because currently, he has to go to the music label to basically record his album. And the label has more power since he is the one paying and the one distributing and also making the most of the royalties of the music that the artist makes. But what does an artist truly want? For who is he making that music? He is making that music for his fans. So what if he could give out NFTs that he sells directly to his fans, and the fans that want to support him can have influence on the album. But on top of that, they can be the first to be able to attend the new concerts of that album. And on top of that, they can also get some part of the royalties. But the same goes, for instance, with a car. Selling a car to somebody else now needs to go to certain institutes. But what if this function can be taken over by technology? And then, if we have ownership of assets, we have an identity, we want to create communities. And how do these communities, organizations, or even nations, how does the governance go around that? So how do we make decisions? How do we enable people to be part of the decision-making process? So we have a more democratic way about decisions that are made by movements. And if we combine this digital identity with the ownership of assets, and then have organizations with governance in a decentralized way, we get to decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs. Look to, for instance, government. If they want to have more citizen participation, you need to enable the citizen to be part of that decision-making program. If we look, for instance, that somebody that lives in a certain city or even in a certain neighborhood has much better idea about what is needed to guide this neighborhood. So let him be part of that decision-making, empower him. Besides that, we have a lot of communities with the same interests, with the same ideas or ideologies. And these people also need a way that they can come together and be part of a community worldwide, so that we can have a decision-making progress in a democratic way, enabled by technology. And this is what DAOs can provide, to basically empower people around the world in different types of communities, organizations, or even a country. And then if we look to the financial institutions that we currently have, we have a very centralized system where banks have basically licensed to provide financial products. And the license is something you not easily get, and that is for a reason. On top of that, is that the financial products they create are big, not optimized, and are not for everybody easy to understand. So now with blockchain, we have DeFi, a decentralized financial system. And what it basically creates is to look to the financial system and to take out all the small financial processes and replace them with technology, to replace them with a smart contract in which you can interact with, where you and everybody is able to interact with this smart contract. And basically, every small financial process we can see like a Lego block. So with all these different Lego blocks of different financial processes, we can create our own financial products all together. And everybody can interact with it. So everybody has access to the same financial means. And then, if we continue, the next step in Web.3, of course, will be the metaverse. It will be a virtual world where we can interact with each other all around the world, where basically, if I want to meet up with my community, which is governed by a DAO, where I have my own assets, where I can interact with my digital identity, I can enter with that identity into the metaverse and interact with communities and people. But also I can have access to products, services all around the world. I can have the ownership of parts of the metaverse. I can come together, like in an office, and sign on the blockchain a financial product with an investment bank, for instance. But also, I want to explore, for instance, the Central African Republic, and I enter that world to see the digital twin, the digital version of the country, in a very easy way from all around the world. On top of that, there are some other interesting things within the blockchain world. Because when we look to these new building blocks that we have as an operating system for society, we can also look about how we want to incentivize certain behavior that we want to see in the world. For instance, currently we are gathering so much data. More people are walking around with a Fitbit and collecting health data. It could be, for instance, that if you choose to, by yourself, that if you want to provide that health data to, for instance, a health insurance company about your steps that you take every day, that if I, for instance, take 6,000 steps a day, that I can then get a reduction on the cost of my health insurance. So we can look to other ways of paying for certain services, for certain products. But on the other hand, we can also look with these incentives to other sides. For instance, to dynamic prices. If we look, for instance, to gasoline. Gasoline has a certain fixed price per liter. But what if we want to lead a more sustainable future? So, if I drive very eco-friendly, then maybe I will pay less for a liter of gasoline than if I'm driving and using that gasoline in a less efficient way. So with smart contract, we can program that, for instance, we are not paying per liter for a scarce resource, but we pay for use. And think about all the possibilities of other ways of creating incentives that we as humanity want to see all around the world. But also look to supply chains. They are very complex. There is a lot of stakeholders involved. There is a lot of quality control about tests, about documents, about import, export, invoices, and so on that are being sent. And currently, all these companies operate within a data silo. What if we can create a system where we can see in a much more transparent way about how products get created? Then, every time when we know the real story behind the product, we, when we buy it, can choose if that is what we want to see in the world. And then we give an option to everybody around the world to vote with every buy, what we want to see in the world. And also look about other parts of business. When we look, businesses are much more moving forward to not focus only on financial profits, but also think about the sustainability and about the world that we live. So what if we have a more accountability, for instance, for carbon production, or other ways that we can create a system where sustainability is at its core. And every time when we choose about the future of our society. But also look about how energy is provided. In a lot of ways, we have like a one price for the energy. We get it from the central net. And this is everything but efficient. So with blockchain, we can create smart grids. So we can even start it peer-to-peer, where I have a solar panel, my neighbor has a turbine, and we all generate sustainable energy. And this is being tokenized and being sold on an open market via the blockchain. Combine that with smart batteries, we get a fluctuating price, but a much more optimal, organized way of how we use the resources that we generate. So a real paradigm shift is happening, because these are only just some examples, but blockchain can basically disrupt and create a paradigm shift around the world, can create a new operating system where we as humanity can decide about how this operating system should look like. Because besides blockchain, we have a lot of other technologies that are currently being developed. And with blockchain and all the others, we can enable all the people around the world to be part of the movement, and everybody should be able to have a say about how the new fabric of society should look like. I want to thank you all, and I want to let you all to think about what opportunities are we now tapping into, how we can enable with people all around the world, and especially now at the heart of Africa with the Central African Republic. How do we empower everybody? How do we want to see the future of the whole world? It starts small, but it becomes big, and in the end, the whole world should be enabled. Thank you.
Amazing, Yannick. Thank you for this very educative overview. I hope that this helps putting things into perspective.
Thank you.
Now that we have had a great overview about the evolution of technology, we can move on to the next topic. And as the next speaker, I have the honor of inviting on the stage Mr. Hervé Enduba, Minister of Finance of the Central African Republic. Mr. Enduba has gathered many years of experience as a man in the private sector, which he now puts to good use within the public sector to create a better synergy within the economy. We'll get to know in his talk about important details of the financial perspectives of the Sango project. Please welcome on stage Mr. Enduba. Barala.
Barala, Alexei.
Pleasure.
Pleasure.
Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be here on stage. I think it's not really necessary to talk about the opportunities in Africa. Africa, which is the next frontier, the fourth industrial revolution, the agriculture capacity to feed the world, the demographic dividends, etc., etc. You can get all this information which confirm that Africa is the future on internet. So I will immediately jump into the heart of the subject to give you an outlook of the country on the Sango initiative on the Ministry of Finance perspective. Our government is facing so many issues to offer the basic services to the population. We have a lack of high-quality infrastructure, energy, clean water, roads, schools, hospitals, etc. The situation puts the country in a continuous cycle of weakness and fragility, which impacts negatively the fiscal space of the country. On the financial perspective, the question is, how are we going to finance the infrastructures in our country while needs are urgent and estimated at several billion US dollars? How are we going to strengthen our fiscal capacity and ensure the growth? The governments in sub-Saharan African countries are pushing very hard to give the necessary space to the private sector for them to play the role and invest strongly in the infrastructure. But this solution faces the limit of our traditional financial system. The Central African Republic solution, Sango, which is our cryptocurrency, based on the blockchain with Bitcoin as reference, will drive the growth of our country on one hand and will unlock the development of sub-Saharan African countries on another hand. If it's true that the crypto community will reach 1 billion people, users, by end 2022, which represent between 12 and 14% of the world population, let's show to the rest of the world how powerful it is and how it can be a game changer for the poor and fragile countries which have a lot of natural resources. I think you'll have another view on this by my other colleagues. Join us and let's take advantage of this unique opportunity to build a better future of endless possibilities. Thank you.
Did I say correctly?
Singila Mingi is
Singila
better.
Mingili. Lost in
Excellent.
translation.
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Enduba.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I hope that all this comes to fruition.
It was great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
And now is the time to present our next speaker. And now, as our next speaker, we have the pleasure to invite on stage Rufin Benan Beltougou. He's the Minister of Natural Resources and Mining, who will give us an overview about the investment opportunities that we can have in the Central African Republic. Please welcome on stage Mr. Beltougou. Minister, Barala,
Barala Mingi.
the stage is yours.
Bonjour. Mesdames et messieurs, bonjour. J'aimerais vous parler du potentiel minier centrafricain. Potentiel minier qui offre des opportunités d'investissement inouïes pour tout investisseur. La République centrafricaine est un pays situé au cœur de l'Afrique. Elle couvre une superficie de 623 000 km². Disposant d'un vaste ensemble géologique qui couvre pratiquement 32 substances minérales, contenant 470 indices de minerais, la RCA est un pays à très forte potentialité minière. Nous trouvons l'or, le diamant et plusieurs autres minerais qui sont malheureusement inexploités, faute de ressources. Le projet Sango facilitera la tokenisation des ressources de la République centrafricaine pour les investisseurs du monde entier. Certaines de ces ressources ont été évaluées, éprouvées, tandis que d'autres n'ont pas été évaluées. Elles méritent une attention particulière en termes d'opportunités d'investissement. Les plus importants, je voudrais les citer, l'or, le fer, le diamant, le calcaire, le lithium, le cobalt et le rhodium. L'or, principal minerai ayant été évalué dans le cadre de plusieurs études, s'étend sur un gîte primaire appelé roche verte et également sur un gîte alluvionnaire. L'ensemble de ces gisements a fait l'objet d'études qui ont mis en valeur plus de 300 tonnes sur les deux gîtes et de 2000 tonnes évaluées pratiquement à 60 milliards de dollars. Le diamant, principale ressource exploitée par les artisans miniers, s'établit à plus de 57 millions de carats, dont 29 à l'ouest du pays, 29 millions à l'ouest du pays et 27 millions à l'est, pour une valeur de 285 milliards de dollars. Le fer est également reparti sur deux importants sites, celui de Topa et celui de Bogoin. Les deux sites ont fait également l'objet d'études qui ont évalué à plus de 2,2 milliards de tonnes prouvées et 150 milliards de tonnes estimées. Le calcaire également est reparti sur deux sites, à Bobassa et le site de Fatima qui est à Bangui. Celui de Bobassa, après étude, a mis en exergue plus de 262 millions de tonnes et celui de Fatima, 680 millions de tonnes. Le graphite a fait l'objet également d'une exploration sommaire qui a mis en exergue plus de 300 tonnes et une estimation a également été faite pour plus de 2000 tonnes de réserves. Le tout peut être évalué à 600 millions de dollars. L'uranium, substance stratégique, a fait l'objet d'importantes études qui ont mis en valeur plus de 120 000 tonnes, évaluées à 15,4 milliards de dollars. Le cuivre, le coltan, appelé colombo-tantalite, et le cobalt ont également été explorés dans des études sommaires qui ont mis également en évidence des réserves économiquement exploitables. Le potentiel pétrolier centrafricain se répartit entre le nord, est et le sud du pays, où 3 grands blocs pétroliers ont fait l'objet d'études importantes par des firmes internationales. Parmi ces zones, seuls 63 km², 63 000 km² ont été étudiés, valorisés. Le reste du territoire vierge, qui n'a pas fait l'objet d'études approfondies, nécessite la mobilisation d'importantes ressources pour pouvoir développer le pays. Le projet Sangocoin, le projet Sango, permettra à la République centrafricaine de pouvoir mobiliser les ressources, mobiliser les investisseurs importants que vous êtes pour le développement de ce pays. C'est une opportunité unique et inouïe qui s'offre au pays pour son développement. Je vous remercie.
Merci. Thank you.
Singila Mingi, merci.
Now that we have had a great overview about investment opportunities of the Central African Republic, it's time to move on to the next topic. And now the next speaker that I will welcome on stage is Pascal Bida Kouyangbale. He's the Minister of Strategic Investment and Infrastructure Development, and he will tell us more about the crypto island. Balara,
Hello, how are you?
good.
Okay.
The stage is yours.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very glad to be here tonight to introduce you the Crypto Island project. It's going to be a project to create a crypto-friendly environment, a home for crypto enthusiasts, and not only. In this island, we are going to promote the tokenization and the NFTization of the economy in the world. So for that, we are going to doing all these things, not only for CAR, Central African Republic, not only for Africa, but for the world. This revolution is going to take place, in fact, in the crypto island, in the heart of Africa, in the middle of the river of Ubangi, in the equatorial area, a green paradise to attract crypto business, a safe and full tax-free environment. So that means for all crypto transactions going to benefit to the system of tax-free, full tax-free in Central African Republic on the crypto island. For this to happen, we are working very hard on a solid legal framework, which is going to be a pillar of security for building the crypto ecosystem. A crypto hub based on the crypto island is going to help developing all crypto activities. This crypto island is going to be a green city for the development of these different crypto activities with a futurist infrastructure, futurist and green buildings, futurist and green offices, apartments, hospitals, schools, hotel, golf clubs, sport area, and other amenities. This crypto island is going to be the place to be for dreamers who's ready to realize their dream. The place to be to invent and shapes the future. Please come and enjoy the crypto revolution in your crypto city. Thank you very much. Singila.
Singila Mingi, thank you.
Singila,
We
thank
wish
you.
you a lot of success with the
Okay,
project.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
So now that we had an overview about the details about the crypto island, we can move on to the next topic. As the next speaker, we have the honor to welcome on stage Justin Gournat-Jacot. He is the Minister of Digital Economy and Telecommunications, and he will share with us the whole process of digitalization within Central African Republic. Balara,
Baramingi.
Minister, pleasure to meet you. The
Baramingi.
stage is yours.
Ok. Dans le plan de relèvement et de consolidation de la paix en République centrafricaine, le gouvernement prévoit d'atteindre une croissance forte et inclusive au profit du développement. Cet objectif ne saurait être atteint sans la mise en place d'un environnement favorable au développement du secteur financier, répondant tant aux besoins de la profession de ce secteur qu'à l'ensemble des acteurs économiques. Conformément à la vision politique du président de la République, chef de l'État, le professeur Faustin Arcand Touadéra, qui, dans sa profession de foi, voudrait faire du secteur de l'économie numérique l'un des piliers du développement de la République centrafricaine. C'est dans cette optique que le ministère des Finances et du Budget et le ministère de l'économie numérique, des Postes et Télécommunications ont fait voter et promulguer la loi sur les taxations électroniques le 11 janvier 2022 et la loi sur la crypto-monnaie le 22 avril 2022. À ce jour, les travaux sur les textes d'application sont suffisamment avancés afin de réglementer et de faciliter l'installation des acteurs de l'écosystème dans un environnement favorable à leurs activités. Le plan national de Centrafrique Digital 2025 traduit la volonté nationale de franchir un premier palier afin de hisser progressivement au niveau des États modernes et prospères. Le projet de mise en œuvre de ce plan est d'une importance vitale pour la République centrafricaine. En effet, l'objectif poursuivi est de contribuer à l'attractivité de notre territoire, de la relance de notre économie via les initiatives et l'engagement continu du ministère chargé de l'économie numérique, des Postes et Télécommunications depuis sa conception à la mise en œuvre des différents projets. À travers cet exposé, je voudrais présenter les multiples opportunités qu'offre notre pays, la République centrafricaine, aux investisseurs que vous êtes, afin de venir investir chez nous dans un climat économique favorable, reposant sur un partenariat gagnant-gagnant. À cet effet, le gouvernement, à travers le département que je dirige, prendra toutes les dispositions nécessaires afin de faciliter votre intégration dans le circuit économique de notre pays. Pour cela, quelques actions ont été déjà menées allant dans le sens de faciliter l'intégration en plus du cadre réglementaire déjà établi. Bientôt s'en suivra l'opérationnalisation de l'interconnexion backbone Internet basée sur la fibre optique. Ce serait la première étape pour obtenir une couverture Internet 5G nationale à haut débit et facilitée par cette interconnexion dorsale d'Internet. Extension de la couverture via les opérateurs de réseau centralisés ou décentralisés. La transformation digitale de l'administration tend à devenir une réalité en République centrafricaine. Parfois, il y a un avantage de commencer par le bas. Par cela, vous permet de construire sur la base des dernières technologies et principes. Permettre l'accès au système financier sur mobile est déjà une tendance en Afrique et il y a encore de la place pour se développer. En outre, le secteur de télécommunications présente également des opportunités qui peuvent intéresser les investisseurs car le pays dispose d'un taux de pénétration de la téléphonie mobile encore très faible, estimé à ce jour à environ 36% par rapport à un taux moyen de 82% sur le continent. Le secteur postal en pleine mutation a lui aussi subi quelques réformes à travers la création récente de la Société nationale des postes, ayant pour vision l'accélération du déploiement des activités postales et la digitalisation des services postaux sur toute l'étendue du territoire national. Avec 2 opérateurs, c'est aussi un secteur qui pourrait intéresser à l'avenir y investir, car le pays dispose d'un vaste territoire permettant de développer un grand réseau de distribution. Un autre sujet d'intérêt serait l'identité et la prospérité numérique alimentée par la technologie blockchain et reconnue par les entités gouvernementales officielles. Notre position actuelle nous permet de tout numériser. Notre vision est que c'est le moment de le faire et nous accueillons des partenaires dans cette direction. L'identité autosouveraine permettant l'accès numérique aux services publics pour les particuliers et pour les entreprises ont la construction d'un environnement entièrement numérisé par les entreprises et la déclaration fiscale sont d'autres objectifs que nous avons sur la carte. Nous croyons que c'est l'avenir de la République centrafricaine, de l'Afrique et du monde. Distingués partenaires, le pays dispose d'énormes potentialités. C'est pourquoi nous comptons sur le développement et le maillage de ces infrastructures afin de couvrir l'ensemble du territoire national au moyen d'un dispositif de technologie, comme entre autres la solution satellitaire compte tenu de l'immensité du territoire, afin de faciliter le développement de toutes les régions du pays de manière non discriminatoire et jeter définitivement les bases du développement durable soutenu par la cohésion sociale. Nous sommes ici en droit de vous rassurer que les dispositions sont prises pour vous réserver un accueil chaleureux et faciliter votre intégration dans le circuit économique de notre pays, la République centrafricaine. Nous vous souhaitons déjà la bienvenue en Centrafrique. Merci pour votre bien aimable attention. Singila Mingi.
Singila Mingi à vous, monsieur Gourna Jaco.
Oui.
Merci pour votre temps et pour vos explications.
Ok, merci
Thank
beaucoup.
you.
D'accord.
And now that we had an overview about how this digitalization process will look like in the future, we can move on to the next topic. At last, but not least, as a cherry on top of the cake, we have the honor to welcome on stage Jan Schaeler. He has been active in the blockchain industry since the last 8 years and has also founded 2 blockchain ventures. He's also the board member of the Blockchain Netherlands Foundation and also is the digital leader at the World Economic Forum. In this talk, we learn about the opportunities of Web3 for governments. Welcome, Jan.
Thank you.
Take it away.
Thanks so much. Trust has always been one of the cornerstones of society. It maintains relationships. It lets companies grow and flourish. And it's the cement of collaboration between individuals, governments, and companies. It makes that we really want to be part of something, that we really want to give our talent and put in the time and effort, and always do that little bit of extra more. But according to Confucius, without trust, we cannot stand. Society nowadays, unfortunately, is facing a huge trust inertia. Can technology overcome this huge problem? My name is Jan Schaeler. In the past years, I had the pleasure of organizing over 50 TED events on a global scale, from Amsterdam to the United Nations in New York and Baghdad, Iraq. And after that, I found 2 blockchain ventures, and am, as already mentioned, head of the board of the Blockchain Netherlands Foundation and digital leader at the World Economic Forum. Now, one of the things that is grinding my gears is trust. Trust in the world. And when we look to the most respected barometer of trust, the Edelman Trust Barometer, we see that all sectors and societal actors, from media to governments, from corporates to healthcare, trust is declining. And it's declining fast. And it all has to do with this VUCA world in which we're living in, this volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguity world. Life is becoming so much more complex. it's hard to make a living, it's harder to have fun, and it's harder to understand. But this is causing massive problems worldwide in different societies. Societies that are now becoming much more polarized, populistic, and distrusted. The societal contracts that governments have with their inhabitants is becoming so much harder to fulfill by the day. And fortunately, technology is here to give the helping hand. Blockchain technology has since day one been named the trust machine, because the technology is consisting of several building blocks that have proven themselves to bring trust back in different aspects of society. Now, it all started with this peer-to-peer cash system, Bitcoin, that was found at the heydays of the financial crisis, bringing back trust in one of the most comprehensive systems in the world. A system that is fully based on trust, but lacked all of it. Now, 14 years later, what we see is that like the underlying technology, the blockchain technology, is being used by and adopted by almost all the industries all around the globe, even in the tiniest countries. But it evolved from the toy from the nerds to this new trust machine for society. The technology itself has evolved at an incredible pace. And what we see now are like these new, unforeseen possibilities. And most of them are still really new developments also being introduced on a regular basis. The following 5 key developments are, in my perspective, so extremely interesting for governments to have a look at. Let me start with crypto money. And why money? Well, because of the writer Yuval Harari is mentioning it so nicely. Money is the most universal and most efficient system of mutual trust ever devised. But, according to Henry Ford, it's better that people just don't understand this financial system. Because if they did, there will be a revolution before tomorrow morning. In my perspective, we can't explain why in such a tech-laden world there are still over 2 billion people without access to a financial infrastructure. A financial infrastructure that is, according to all the research reports by the World Bank, by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, by McKinsey, the basic foundation for developing a country. Something that so many countries are looking forward to. In my perspective, you also cannot explain why it's still so expensive to be poor, right? I mean, the people that need the money the most pay up to 20% to send money to their families. And therefore, I'm really excited about countries that are now circumventing the traditional financial system that has not been in favor for them in the past years. And then now they start using this new technology to make it their own system more inclusive. And I think a great example can be found in the Philippines, where before only 11% of the inhabitants had access to a financial infrastructure. And now, with this crypto app, this new application, finally all the inhabitants of the Philippines have access to a new financial system, and this app has become the biggest bank of the country. Governments all over the world, over 90%, are already working on central bank digital currencies. And the 2 that are already active in development countries are showing incredible results with regards to efficiency, safety, and most important, inclusivity. Now, the second development where I'm really excited about is self-sovereign identity, giving consumers back the control about their own identity. And not just giving back control, but also giving them an identity. Because still over 1 billion people worldwide lack a formal official identity, preventing them from things like voting, getting a loan, or getting official work. Besides that, we see on a global scale the massive identity frauds taking place. We see the big tech companies misusing the identities right now. And therefore, it's really great to see in, for example, development countries now using self-sovereign identity, for example, by the United Nations, helping over like hundreds of thousands of refugees with an own digital identity. Great example here, refugees from Syria, their health data is being stored on the blockchain, and just with a glimpse of their eye, with an eye scan, they get the most up-to-date health record or their digital identity presented. In supermarkets, there is no physical money anymore. Also here, they can blink with their eye, identify themselves, and pay with their digital wallet. Now, also here, we see some incredible projects also on a more global scale. Like in India, the Aadhaar project, the biggest project by far, comprising over 1 billion digital identities. And also in Africa, South Africa, where Yoma was launched. Verbal digital identities, credentialing for the masses. Now, we see tons of projects enhancing lives of humans because, well, of course, the better security of this digital identity. And not just the security, also here, because according to the World Bank, it's predicted that the use of online identities could unlock the economic value equivalent of 6% of the GDP in emerging countries. Now, the third really exciting development that is taking place is tokenization. And for me, what I'm so excited about is because it's finally bringing back trust in ownership, physical and digital, but also making ownership easier, more efficient, and more inclusive because of things like fractional ownership, unlocking tons of new possibilities for things like investments and ownership. Now, these developments are already taking place for years. We see it in the traditional arts, we see it in property, we see it in stocks, lately also with digital content named NFTs, kickstarted a completely new tokenization revolution for industries like the music industry, and in my perspective, also giving the first killer app of blockchain. What emerging markets are missing, in my perspective, are participation and liquidity. And this is essential, because essential in a successful major market is more movements of assets. In other words, markets need liquidity, which is partly derived from participation. Tokenization could make this financial industry in development countries so much more accessible, cheaper, faster, and easier to run. Thereby also possibly unlocking trillions of dollars in currently illiquid assets. And of course, vastly increasing the volumes of trading in these assets. Now, my colleagues at the World Economic Forum therefore predicted that in the upcoming years, around 10% of global GDP will probably be tokenized. The fourth trend, what I'm really excited about, is decentralized data. And why is this so important? Let me give you an example of Haiti. We saw the devastating earthquake taking place in Haiti. And the agency that owned all the land rights, that registered all the land rights of Haiti, had them stored locally. So when this earthquake hit, indeed, the agency got flushed in the ocean, together with all the land rights. And in the end, nobody knew what land was actually registered to what person, therefore really showing the need for decentralized data. Now, why are users so extremely enthusiastic about using this blockchain technology? Is because of the nature of the technology, making editing the data being stored on this blockchain impossible. Giving, therefore, trust in the data, because you know that nobody, single person, no single entity can edit the data. So when we look, for example, to land rights, well, we see now cases in, for example, Honduras, where officials, well, they used to just simply written land in their own name, stealing it from the rightful owner. We see in India, on an even bigger scale, that 1/3 of all the civil lawsuits is about land ownership. And therefore, if you look to the research reports from, for example, the World Bank, they show that after various pilots worldwide, they are so extremely promising, not just to prevent corruption, but also provide all kinds of new revenue streams for governments, which of course can be further built their country. Now, why should you use decentralized data as well? Because there's tons of ideas why you should actually decentralize data, for example, about medicines. On the global scale, 500,000 people still die on an annual basis because of fake medicines, most of them in Africa. So what you see now with all the pharmacies, they put all the medical data, all the data about these medicines on the blockchain, so users of the medicines can verify if they have the real drug or not. And the same with food. I mean, still 500,000 people, mostly in development countries, die because of bad food. And also here we see this huge movement of food producers now putting all the data about the ingredients, about the products on the blockchain so people can verify it and make sure that they don't eat the bad food. And even wider, also fake items like shoes and handbags. It's a $500 billion industry on the global scene, and it's the #1 source of income for terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda. Governments taking the lead in decentralizing all their governmental data and also public services with incredible results, giving tremendous opportunities, not just by efficiency operating the government, but also for all the inhabitants using these governmental services. And what we see in the results are that from the 3,000 services that have been put online, 99% are now available online, saving 3 million hours on an annual basis. It only takes 3 hours to set up a business in Estonia. And combined with the fact that they have this e-residency, Estonia has now more startups per person than in Silicon Valley. Another great example is the government of Dubai, where because they decentralized the data, they're now saving on an annual basis so much money that they can build another Burj Tower every year with the savings. The last trend that I'm really excited about is the metaverse. And the metaverse is already existing in my perspective because of the gaming industry. The gaming industry being as big as both the music and the movie industry combined when you look to turnover. It has over 3 billion active users on the global scale. And in my perspective, it is one of the predecessors of the metaverse. Now, in the past years, we saw, of course, this rapid speed in digital transition of our society. Everything from dating to having a workout, from going to work, going to church, and everything is taking place. And if we look now to the numbers, like the amount of time we spend on a daily basis online, right now it's around 1/3 of the 24 hours on a daily basis. And in a few years' time, people expect that it's over 50%. Therefore, Bill Gates is already expecting, if we look a little bit further to the possibilities of the metaverse, that this metaverse, this virtual economy, could be as big, maybe even bigger than the current physical economy. Now, if dogs are like their owners, the metaverse is like their country. For governments, in my perspective, the opportunities are falling into 3 categories. One of them is using digital twins to remedy issues. The second is bringing a set of services to residents. And the third is to enhance the touristic destination for prospective and current tourists. Now, give some great examples. Let me start with China, where several cities already built an identical virtual twin of their city for example, police organizations that can look at where, for example, accidents are happening or potential threats. But if we look even to American cities, we see that they will achieve a 280 billion cost saving by using these digital twins to increase things like efficiency in energy, transportation, and infrastructure. Now we see all kinds of other initiatives where governments are now putting services like embassies, like even entire ministries in Saudi Arabia in the metaverse. Because the possibilities are endless for all the administrative services regarding the economy. From culture and tourism, education, civil complaints, you name it. Seoul even hopes to host a metaverse-based festival, attracting virtual tourists worldwide, and let residents meet virtually with avatars of, yes, real public officials. Now, what we see now is also that already tens of thousands of people are already joining a metaverse holiday, so they can check out the country before they actually go. Also, some incredible opportunities are here for countries that want to show themselves to the world and attract more tourists. Now, to close down, what we see is even when the crypto markets are not going in an upside direction, we see still massive investments taking place by companies, really respected companies like Binance, like Andreessen Horowitz. And also with the great resignation of young people, leaving traditional firms, like financial firms, like multinationals, to work for Web3 startups, believing they can finally make an impact. We are at the forefront of a new era, where the positive change can be driven by technology. But we need thought leaders that dare to take the first step, planting the first seeds to grow, flourishing, paving the path for the developments to come. One of the things where I'm the most excited about when it comes to the Sango project is the tokenization of assets. Finally, democratizing investments, making it, for example, possible for fractional investments, and thereby making it also easier for capital and investments in a fractional way. These developments, they usually happen gradually and then suddenly. We've seen that with so many new technologies popping up. Usually it happens really slow, and then at once it goes really fast. And usually I compare it with the first iPhone. Who could have seen that with the first iPhone, we would be on this iPhone for 4 hours in a day. We would navigate with Google Maps, listen to music on Spotify, do our banking in the banking apps. Now with all the exciting developments, I mean also in the Central African Republic, we're just getting started. And I'm so excited for this Sango initiative to take place. And I really want to congratulate the country for daring to taking all these quantum leaps. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Jan, and thank you for this amazing presentation. I think you resumed it all, and it was the last puzzle of this event. Thanks for your time.
Thanks so much.
So now we are coming to an end of this launch event of the Sango project, and I would like to thank you, the viewer, for actually being with us on this journey and learning about all these developments, all this exciting future that the Central African Republic is undergoing. If you like to have more information about what you've seen, find it on the website. And if you're really interested and you feel that you could be part of this journey, also check out the website and be part of the waiting list. I'm thanking you. I'm your host, Alexei Jordanov. Again, congratulations to the Central African Republic for this initiative, and I'll see you another time.
L'avenir de la République centrafricaine est entre la main de sa jeunesse. Et notre vision, c'est de former cette jeunesse pour qu'elle s'approprie les nouvelles technologies et aussi la crypto-monnaie et bien d'autres moyens pour le développement de la République centrafricaine.
President Touadéra came from a very humble beginning, having been born to a driver and farmer at Bangui in 1957. He attended the University of Bangui and the University of Abidjan. He went on to get 2 doctorate degrees. By the will of the people, Faustin Touadéra was elected twice as president. Now, he brings the crypto revolution in his country, building a crypto city on an island in the capital of Bangui.
This crypto city is going to be implemented on an island, the crypto island. It's going to be a free tax zone, but also a nice place to enjoy the crypto revolution. The crypto president wants to open this crypto city to the world. That's the vision.
L'approche assez du pont là qui lie tout ça là, il faut quand même aménager un port pour ceux qui vont remonter le fleuve. Aujourd'hui, on voit que la crypto-monnaie, les monnaies virtuelles apportent des ressources pour un certain nombre de pays et permettent de capter des ressources. C'est ce qui nous manque pour le développement de notre pays. Vous savez, sur l'ensemble du territoire, on a de grandes quantités d'or. Pratiquement sur l'ensemble du territoire, il y a du diamant, du fer, du cuivre, du coltan, du lithium, du cobalt et bien d'autres minerais stratégiques qui sont aujourd'hui connus et identifiés. Bitcoin, c'est l'or digital. Mais notre idée, c'est de faire la liaison entre l'or digital et les ressources et nos grands projets de développement. Ça, c'est une somme. Et le produit par un scalaire. Bon, alors donc lambda FDX qui va être donc lambda FDX.
Je compte vraiment faire la nutrition parce que ça a depuis toujours été mon ambition. Je veux vraiment être dans ce domaine-là afin d'aider la population.
J'aime bien donner de l'eau potable à la population.
J'aimerais diriger une université scientifique pour le meilleur développement de notre pays.
Je continue à dispenser mes enseignements parce que je veux toujours former des jeunes pour la République centrafricaine. Et quand je suis en face de mes étudiants, j'apprends beaucoup aussi. À travers eux, on peut avoir les feedbacks.
The Central African Republic has a lot to offer to ecotourists and the lovers of the great outdoors. To preserve this nature for prosperity, the country nominated 9 vast sites to UNESCO's inventory of World Heritage Sites. He is the oldest gorilla, Makumba by his name. Scientists from around the world come here to see him. Here you will find 5 natural parks and 33 protected areas. A nation connected to its roots, a culture rooted in sustainability. Investing in building a real crypto city means also rebuilding the whole Central African Republic, building schools and infrastructure, building hope and purpose, building faith. You contribute to a history revolution in which both of us, you as an investor and we as a country, fulfill our greatest dreams. Building the crypto city with us, you build light in the eyes of pure people, and you gate the chance once and forever to change the history and the news of Central Africa.
La crypto-monnaie est révolutionnaire. Elle va démocratiser la démocratie. En fait, elle va donner le pouvoir au peuple pour participer vraiment au développement financier. Eux-mêmes vont... c'est un dispositif qui... on ne peut pas échapper aujourd'hui si on regarde l'avenir. Je dois, avec fierté aujourd'hui, vous annoncer que le Bitcoin, la loi, a été votée par le Parlement. C'est désormais une monnaie de référence et je pense que c'est un pari que nous avons gagné avec l'ensemble du peuple centrafricain à travers ses représentants. Mon rêve, c'est de voir un jour la République centrafricaine être parmi les pays qui attirent les autres citoyens du monde, où il fait bon vivre pour tous ceux qui s'y trouvent et que le centrafricain puisse bien vivre sur son sol et vraiment y rêver.
Be a part of a moment in history, the dream of a president, the rebuilding of Central African Republic.